Welcome, everyone. Welcome to A Soul Focus. Say hello to my very special guest tonight, Nicole Rhodes. How are you tonight?
Hello. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, but thank you, Brooke, for having me on and helping this work get out there amongst everyone.
Oh, that's it. That's it. I get nervous every time I come on. It doesn't stop. So Nicole Rhodes is an energy healthcare worker, solution-based holistic guidance through conversations with love. She works with animals and is an amazing healer, so I've heard. Would you like to tell us about yourself, Nicole? What you basically do?
Whereas energy healthcare meets solution-based energy healthcare, I've got some stuff written down because, you know, I'll just say to everyone, I'll be transparent. It's not that I'm dyslexic. It's just that my recall button in my brain doesn't quite work as well as some other people. So I have to go with my notes. So just bear with me. Energy healthcare meets solution-based guidance through conversations with love. So one of my innate abilities that I've had from the moment I could walk is, or talk, so to speak, is having conversations with people, and it just goes in very deep, very fast, and it helps unstick people. So I went off, I learned energy healthcare, I learned Reiki, Reconnective Healing, intuitive guidance, all of those sorts of things along the way. But over time, like making a cake or a loaf of bread, we add ingredients and everything changes over time. Yeah. So now all of this is kind of morphed, and these conversations with love are sometimes channeled information directly from pure source. And there's just a real gentle, safe, guided sort of thing that happens, and energy sort of releases from the body, and stuff that people were stuck with that they didn't even realize they were stuck with just sort of evaporates into nothing. And there's just this beautiful sense and feeling of appreciation and gratitude for self, because this is all about coming back to self and understanding how we work. And that's kind of what I'm doing. And yeah, so I can go back further. You can ask me some questions. I'm happy to answer. I like to work with a dialogue. That sort of prompts conversation for me.
Absolutely. Well, what I ask all guests when they come on the show is, will you want to walk us through how you become, you know, where awakened and how you got into this?
Yeah. My first memory of being able to change things is, I suppose, when I was maybe 8 or something like that. I was with my mum, and we were out in the paddock, and it was pouring with rain, and we had to help a sheep have its lamb. It was stuck inside, and it was pouring with rain, and when we opened the doors, the rain stopped. And we helped the sheep and the lamb, and they were fine. And then we hopped back in the car, and the rain started again. And I've never forgotten that moment. It was really pivotal. Pivotal. And another moment when as an adult, when I look back, when I realized things started, was my mum had left me in charge of a little lamb that was possibly going to die. It was on a little mat in front of the heater, and she was going to go down the shop. So we were in the country. So when she went down the shop, she was gone for an hour. And she said, look, it's probably going to die, but I just want you to just stay with it. And I'm okay. And I remember just patting the little lamb and touching its ears and saying, please don't die, please don't die, you know, live, live. And I just kept patting this little lamb. And before Mum got home, that little lamb was running around the room.
Wow.
I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And I never really thought much of it, not until later in life, okay? There's been other things as well, you know. I had a cat, and when I learnt Reconnective Healing with Eric Pearl, I would come home and practice on my cat. And as we all know, anyone who's got a cat who's done Reiki or anything like that, they are just junkies for energy work.
Yeah.
And the telepathy between me and my cat became so strong that I could think of whistling him if he was outside, but I wouldn't whistle. I'd just think it and he would just appear.
Okay.
So what I do is create a bridge of communication between animals and their humans. It's not the only thing I do. I work a lot with people, but this thing I absolutely love. If someone wants me to work on their animal, I will always suggest that they also book in a session for themselves, because creating that bridge of communication is just so important. And that way you'll get images in your head of what the cat or the dog want, you know? So, yeah, I love it. Remind me. See, this is what happens. Sometimes I forget. So you need to remind me because I get off track.
Oh, we were just talking about how you awoken into this thing, and you were talking about the sheep. And then you were talking about your energy.
Yes, awakening into it. So when I was 15, I was in a very, very dark space. And one of the things as a human that I've had to live with is not being here. You know, that was a thing that was always part of my life, and I've had to learn ways to navigate that. But when I was 15, I didn't know how to navigate it. You know, girls going through hormones and all of that sort of stuff. And my mum put me in touch with a lady named Chrissy Bing, and she lived in another town away from us, and she just had a group. It was a meditation group, but it was basically learning how to know how you as a human works. And at the same time, my mum gave me a book from Louise Hay, Heal Your Life. I think that's what it's called. You Can Heal Your Life.
Yep.
And that book was the first book that I was able to actually look in a mirror at age 15 or 16 and look at myself and start to learn to say, I love you. And before that, I just couldn't do it. There was just this self-loathing. And
it's hard, isn't it?
It is. And I have a theory of why I've lived through life with this constant feeling of wanting to step out, you know. It sort of resolved just this year. There was a full circle moment where I had a realization. But I digress. I'll go back a little bit. So from 15, I started to read this book and go to these meditations, which I ended up going to until I was 22. I really loved them. And she was just such a gentle soul, and that's what I needed. And I kind of think I was a little bit of an undiagnosed sensory child that is now a sensory adult, you know, so really bright lights and loud noises, or specifically crinkly plastic bags, drive me insane. It tips me over the edge. But generally, most people in this field are oversensory anyway. We just learn to navigate it. We learn to drive this human vehicle that we're living in, don't we?
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
And just for the viewers, sometimes you'll see me sort of look over this way, because I'm not used to not looking at someone's face, because I need the feedback, because that's part of my sensory, but my camera's just there. So I'm getting used to it. That's what an interview's all about, and I'm not a pro at this.
I still don't know what I'm doing.
When I was 20, I became mum. And for any mum out there, we sort of know when our child needs us, or if things are too quiet, and we sometimes can have a telepathy with our kids, or they stand at the front door and it's like you get an image in front of your face of how they ate their lunch during that day. That's kind of how I was, but hadn't embraced what that was. So it was just, oh yeah, I'm intuitive.
Yep.
But so after my son left home, I just started living life a bit, things that I couldn't do when I was younger. And there were moments there that I would be driving down the road. There was a place called Kangaroo Flats in between Mount Gambier and Millicent in South Australia.
Yep.
And it was a 50 to 80k zone. It was like a go-kart track, and I used to fly along there at 120. I'm not condoning speeding anyone, but I was young and dumb, and we do those things. And I remember I would play, and I'd be in the middle of the road taking the line around the corner, you know, as you do.
Yep.
And I would hear the audible voice or get a feeling, move over now. And I'm okay. And I would, and a car would come over the other side of the road.
Oh, wow.
And there were times that I would drive and there were big gaps where I wouldn't remember driving that section of road. I'd be home and it's like, well, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
So I was being very guided even back then, so it seems. But again, I still didn't quite understand it and had some scary experiences as a young teenager playing with seances, as you do.
Yep.
And I think that's why, as a mum, I really stepped away from that. I'd sort of stepped away from that when I was 18. It was just too scary that some experiences happened that were just, and I didn't sleep for a whole week. So, you know, I didn't like it. But what else? As going forward, my son left home. I started to live life. I got married and I moved away. And it was during that period of marriage where it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that sent me into a downward spiral where, you know, the hairs on my bum were really getting singed. I was that low. And I found a lady named Ria.
Yep.
And she took me through some sessions of shadow work and voice dialogue from Howland Sidra Stone. And I'm dropping these names because these are things that have helped me to navigate being human and being on this planet. And voice dialogue, I think, is such a powerful, powerful thing to be able to navigate the thoughts. If anyone's watched the kids' movie Inside Out,
Yep.
it's basically that for adults.
I used to watch Herman's Head. Do you ever see that?
Yes.
That's similar. That was a good show.
Alec McBeal, you know, would have Ally McBeal moments, right? So, you know, we can have observations and awareness of that, but if we don't know how to interact with that, we're still just a bystander, aren't we? So she taught me how to navigate myself and remind me that every time I'm pointing a finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me. And where can I change what I'm doing? I can't change the person in front of me. So how can I change? And I think I was a really tough student. I was very in my asleepness.
Tough on yourself, or?
Well, you hear stories of how before we come here, we drink from the river of forgetfulness, you know.
Yep.
We're in the soul classroom and we're looking at the menu of, oh, I want to have a scary moment and I want to have a loving moment and I want to feel like life's about to end and I want to have all these things. And it's like, okay, we've organized that life for you. They're the parents that are going to do that. Now drink from the river of forgetfulness. And we land here and we're like, why on earth would I choose this? This sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's just blame the parents.
That's right. So Ria really helped me to remember so much so that we had this little group of women and we would have what we'll call meditation nights on a Tuesday night. They weren't meditations. They were get in, do your stuff and purge and vomit and feel sick for a week and snots. And you know, awakening is not an easy gig. But for those who were doing it in the 60s and 70s and again in the 2000s, you know, that 2012, there was a big wave. And I was part of that wave in 2012.
Yep.
And we kind of did it hard. we would do all this stuff and then go and purge for a week and come back and go, oh man, that truck really hit me. And our body would hurt, and the light body symptoms, and it was all so heavy and hard. And but all through that, I learnt the most valuable lesson of all, where I wasn't receiving that love from my marriage. And that broke my heart. And I haven't quite repaired that yet. You know, that's coming. Yep. However, I went inwards. I went very, very deeply inwards. And with Rhea, we did some past life regression, and I learnt so much in that. And I then was able to bring all of that information into this now moment, because it's not about the past life. It's about this consciousness in this moment.
Yeah.
And being present in this moment. So if that stuff's coming in, how can I bring the energy to that from this moment? And that's what I was learning. And wow. In one of those moments, I was in my room. My husband was overseas for 6 months, and I was by myself. And I was just laying on my bed meditating, and then all of a sudden it was like as if I was on the Big Dipper. And just down this tunnel, and off I went. And what I saw was just so amazingly beautiful that I was in the deepest tears and sobbing, and it's like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And it was just this pure light being, which I understood was me. I saw myself without my skin suit on.
That's powerful.
And it was so powerful. And I don't think I got off that bed for about 4 hours. I wasn't able to walk. I don't know. I can't explain it. It was just really, really powerful. So after that, I went and did Reiki again. So Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 with Paul Cockram and Judy Cockram up in Margate. They have what's called the Crystal Temple, and I can't remember the other name of their business, but they used to do sound meditations, and they taught me about Reiki. And I really was needing to learn to connect back into my body. Through life's experiences, I was very disconnected from my body. And I would even say at times I was very disjointed. There may have been some form of undiagnosed separation of self.
Can you explain how that feels for some of the people that might be going through that?
Separation of self?
Yeah.
Okay, one of the experiences I remember, okay, so there was one part where I was very, when my son left home, I was experiencing life from an adult point of view. Let's just say that. And another part of me came forward that was suppressed as a teenager and then as a young mum. I wasn't able to explore all of that selfishness and, I suppose, sexuality and all of that kind of stuff. So as an adult in my 30s, I explored all of that. But I also remember there was a time where I heard an audible voice that if you don't stop this, it all disappears. Your gifts won't come back. And I'm like, oh. So it was really hard. If you've ever been on dating sites, and can be quite addictive, and there's a whole entity and energy that surrounds that and feeds off that energy. You know, the energy of humans is the most, what's the word? Valuable commodity in the universe. So we have to be very discerning of where we're choosing to put our energy. But I was having this asleep experience that I chose to do as a science experiment for myself, because I'm a bit of a geek like that. And so I removed myself from that, and I was very aware of that feeling of addiction. But that feeling of disjointedness, sometimes I would have music playing in my head continually, or I would have a conversation with someone during the day, and then when I put my head on my pillow, it would just play on a loop all night. I felt like I was going insane. And when I started doing the work with Rhea, and, you know, forever full of appreciation for this woman who continues to help people, and Bart and Jodie Christie and Talabudra with their message is all about love and connecting to love. Love is the most powerful energy. And through all of that sort of stuff, but it wasn't until I learnt Reconnective Healing that all of a sudden there was no sound in my ears anymore. The conversation stopped, and it was like as if I just completely aligned and there was just one of me.
It's powerful, isn't it?
It is so powerful. Like, I really encourage every human, preferably from childhood onwards, to learn how you work as a human, how your brain works, how your nervous system works, how your respiratory system works, because if you can breathe through your stresses, which I've been learning how to do today and last week, it coming back to self, feeling your body, absolutely. And that's why if someone's so disjointed, Reiki and those contact energy modalities are really important, really, really important. Hypnosis didn't really work so much for me. But somatic experience with a trained psychologist who worked from home, that was the best. So, it was a trained psychologist doing somatic experience.
Okay.
And so I would just sit with her, and I was very, well, nothing's going to happen here. And she go, what's going to happen? And she goes, well, nothing. We're just here having a chat. And in that moment, she said, your nervous system is checking out my nervous system to see if I'm full of crap. And in that, I felt myself relax. And then we just started to talk. And then all of a sudden, I got this nervous feeling come up out of my body, belly, up through my chest. And I got really panicked, because this is what I used to do. I'd get panicked and I'd step outside of myself, which was a trauma response. And she described to me what a trauma response is and how the brain works, and the big brain and the midbrain and the prehistoric brain, you know, and the fight and flight. And I was living from this space. And she brought me into this space and then this space, and how I could trick this part of my brain, if I was feeling nervous and about to step out, chew on a chewing gum. Because when we're chewing, if we're chewing, the prehistoric brain goes, well, if we're chewing, it means that we must be in rest and digest. There's no lion chasing me. Yep,
we got time to eat.
Yeah, so I actually still use that today, all these years later. It's really stuck. So with that somatic experience, all of this stuff started to come up, and I learnt how to really communicate with myself. And if I was nervous, okay, why am I nervous? Thank you, nervous system. You've got me fully aware and present to my surroundings, what's going on. So I be present and I look, okay, is anything trying to eat me? Are my arms and legs going to spontaneously fall off? No, okay, thank you for alerting me to that. But you can stand down now. I'm actually okay. You must have smelt something in the wind, or that person walked by and their vibe was a bit weird, but I'm actually okay. And then I talk my nervous system down. So it hasn't just been one person. It's been a whole community of people. It takes a parent to birth a child, but it takes a community to raise them. Well, it still takes a community to help a human be an adult.
Yeah.
It doesn't just stop when you leave home. The real work happens when you leave home.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so easy to get stuck in just the mundane this day and age, just making ends meet. It's just ridiculous.
Or my vice, we all have a vice. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs. I don't do anything to scare myself. That was the biggest thing, because I was working with inner child work. Why on earth would I be the bully to scare my inner child? It didn't make sense. So I stopped doing anything that would scare me, like driving fast or driving, what's the word? Irresponsibly.
Yep.
Going on big rides at the show that I know would scare me. I stopped all of that. But there was a point to all of that. A community growing our person and doing inner child work. Again, Ria was helping me with that, and doing some programs with Bart and Jodie Christie on the ego programs. So learning about win and lose, lust and hate, survive or die, victor or victim. And where was I playing out all of that? So I really learned to become the observer of who I am. And sometimes I go down into the experience of forgetfulness so that I can collect data. Yep. And then I am out of that and I can be on my observer again and go, well, what did I do there? And what did I learn from that? And that really sucked. I don't want to do that again. And so by doing all of this work, I noticed that my outside life started to change. I separated from my husband. I decluttered my home, and I found that I wanted to fill the space with things. And I learned, no, okay, be okay with the house being empty. And I kept doing that, waking up to that emptiness of the house every day until it didn't bother me anymore. I had regulated my nervous system to be okay with it. Okay?
Yep.
And then once I was used to that newness, I had created a new step on my ladder of ascending and growing into my highest self. And that's obviously while I'm on earth, that will never stop. And even after I pass, that won't stop. But it's important to consciously and actively be aware to be on that path. It doesn't matter that we go asleep. But just know at some point we have to, flip those covers back and jump into the day with observation and self-awareness. But by creating that space, I created that space inside of myself. Therefore, my outer environment started to reflect my inside environment. I started to eat a lot healthier. I felt so much shinier. And then I started being an Uber driver while I was living in Western Australia.
Yep.
And I learned, like I'd done massage therapy and I'd incorporated my Reiki practice with that as well. And I was carrying a 16-kilogram table up 2 flights of stairs to old Queensland homes, and that was killing me. And then I started doing Uber driving, and that's when I learned about conversations with love. Not that I was having those in the car, but I very quickly learned whether someone was in my space for 5 minutes or 45-minute drive, I would ask them this one question. Let me gather that thought. What's the thing that you do when you're not doing the thing that makes you the money? What's the thing that you do? What's the thing that you do when you're not doing the thing that makes you the money? So I was taking people to their jobs in the morning and I was asking them this first thing in the morning. And they'd think about it and well, what's that thing you do when you're not at work? And they're, and a man opened up his phone and he showed me all these photos of all the tables and all the woodwork that he was doing. And all of a sudden I saw a shift in him and he became so shiny. And he hopped out of my car in a completely different state than when he hopped in it. And I know years down the track that ripple effect affected everyone he interacted with that day.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my mind of I need to remember that whatever that is important. Didn't know what it was. Again, I was just putting ingredients in the casserole of who I am. And I learnt that I could have a conversation and change people's outcomes for that day. And then I started, I was learning Bill Barron's Master of Enrollment, which was an online course. Still, I was living in Queensland at that time. And I found that there was only 4 of us living in Australia. Everyone else was the rest of the world, Boston, Canada, Arizona, wherever. And they were all coaches. And I'm not a coach, and I'm still not a coach, and I'm not a counsellor. I would say peer support. There's been lots of life's experiences, and I can share that experience and those emotions, and that may connect with someone, and in that they feel that someone understands them, okay? And I was on the phone with this gentleman in Boston, and we're talking away, practicing our little spiel, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh my God, what did you just do?" And while I was on the phone to him, I felt this clunk in my chest. And I became aware, and what's that? And all of a sudden I was connected with him. It was like as if the image I saw was the ocean, and I just popped up as like a shape of a human, but just to here.
Yep.
No features, just a water blob. And then he was a water blob. And bang, there was a communication link energetically. And all of a sudden, it was like this cone of silence, just the feeling of the room changed. And I was just asking him questions. This open dialogue started. And for some reason, whenever people talk with me, childhood stuff might come up, or an experience as a teenager, and I hear something in that. I don't know what it is. I just hear something, and I go down that track. It catches my attention. And we just started talking about something with his dad and him and his brother and as a kid, and he had a realization, and he observed himself as a little child. And so I started asking him questions. Can you talk to that little child? What are you seeing? What's it feeling? Oh, it feels really scared. It's all alone. And he realized that aspect of him had separated from himself as a child, and it had stayed in that limbo state all of these years. And so I talked with him because he was the voice to his child. I can't be that voice. He has to be that voice. You have to be that voice. You are healing yourself. Your voice, your vibration, and your frequency that comes from your throat is the most powerful frequency of all. I just know this to be true. I don't know how, I just know. And so I would create a dialogue with him, and he would talk to his child. And all of a sudden, he was embracing his child, and then that child just dissolved, and he was whole again. It wasn't that he wasn't whole. It was just, it was expanded out from him, and he needed to contract it and embody it. It was out there, and he needed to bring it in and embody it into his heart. And
to strengthen that energy from the heart. That's powerful.
Yeah. And what I see, it's like Mario Karts. You know, when Mario Karts is going down the track and he hits a cherry and it's ding, 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 ding. And you get all these points. Right. Exactly. Power up. Thank you. My personal experience from doing this kind of stuff with myself and someone dialoguing with me is when I do that embracing, I'm overwhelmed. Not overwhelmed. It's like a tsunami of love. And then all of a sudden, that child aspect of myself is able to release the gift that was that experience. And I'm then able to see that experience, not from the victim side, but from the observer, from like a scientific point of view in a test, what do you call that? One of those things in science, you know.
Beaker.
Petri dish.
Ah, yep.
And it's just so amazingly wonderful when we can integrate all those aspects of self. So this innately comes out. When I say no one trained me how to do that, I have to have a caveat that there's been a whole community of people helping me to heal, okay? Because there's been a lot of trauma, and that kind of screws a person up for quite a while. But without those traumas, we're not able to have this human experience.
Yeah.
And we needed those traumas to kind of, and I know this is going to be controversial for some people, I say it with compassion and with love. These traumas needed to happen. They are part of our journey. And if we can get to the point of loving them, as Matt Kahn says, whatever arises, love that. And there will become a time in your life when you are strong enough to face it. It didn't kill you the first time. It's not going to kill you now. Your nervous system and your prehistoric reptilian brain thinks it is, but it's just a program that's playing. In the reality of now, It's not real. It's just a replay. You're not going to die. And this is where addiction comes in, because people don't have that realization and the experience is so painful. And how can I numb that? And in that is so beautiful. You know, we've all learned a lot about trauma with Gabor Mate and the wisdom of trauma. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. You know, he went and found all the addicts and everything. And behind every addict, we have to ask the question, the addiction is not the problem. What brought you here is the problem. And most of the time, it was when you were a child and you weren't to blame. It was outside of your control. And this is the controversial part. As a human coming into this world, having experiences that are asleep and having experiences that are awakened consciousness, we needed to be asleep for those experiences to happen. Because if we weren't asleep, we would have told that person to F off. And we wouldn't have been able to have that experience and collect that most valuable data. And I do believe our human vehicle is simply like a USB stick. It's a data collecting machine. Every sense. Our nose has its file. Our ears have its file. Our eyes have their file. Our sexual organs, our hips, our thighs, our knees, every single cell in our body is a terabyte of, or that's just a number, but a terabyte of data. There comes a time when we have our conscious awakening that we kind of need to go through all of those files. And some files we will need a professional to help us with. And once that professional teaches us some basic tools on how to navigate that, and only start with the little trivial stuff before, don't go into the deep stuff straight away. Some people can't handle that and it causes more trauma. We know that scientifically with the synapses in the brain, with the myelin around this sheath, you know. So we have to be really careful and delicate. But I'm noticing that I like to make a point, if you have a counsellor, if you have a psychologist, make sure you're booking an appointment with them the same week that you're booking an appointment with me. If you have complex trauma, I normally wouldn't be seeing complex trauma people because it's outside of my scope. But if they do choose to come and see me, they have that backup that can take them through the bigger processes. Makes sense? I think it's responsible to have that in place. But I generally work with those who are working one to few or one to many. I work one to one and one to few. I'm not apt at working with the one to many yet. but I tend to work with those who are impacting the many. And they might often feel a bit stuck or in a funk about something.
Yep.
And then I just sort of, we might do some energy work, and then a conversation starts, and that's a conversation with love. It's guided, it's channeled, and I don't always remember what's being said because it's not always, it's my voice, but it's not my words. And then this beautiful thing sort of happens, this conversation with love that's all guided and channeled, and this unstuckness happens. And they feel like they can breathe and their chest is out. Sometimes they feel taller. Sometimes they've said they feel clean, more energized. A lot of people just think it's energy work, but it's so much more. It's energy, light, and information. There's information coming through from your guides, your spirit, your soul, the galactic team that works with you, the angelics, God, the universe. It's all part of it. And there's just this realigning that happens. There's nothing wrong with being out of alignment because you learn so much. But if you want to have an experience of what feeling aligned feels like, absolutely, I invite you to come and explore this work. It's just, I love it. It's my shine.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds
what other
effective
questions?
too.
And I'll keep the answers short.
I'm sure people would love to hear about your work with animals.
Oh, I love working with animals. Practiced on my cat a lot. I practiced on lizards because I didn't have the clients when I was beginning, you see.
Yep.
So I would go to the park and there'd be waterfowl and I'd be working on them. They'd just be doing their thing out in the water, and then they'd come out of the water and they'd do this thing with their feathers and they'd fluff up, and every bird is exactly the same. They all do it. They get this fluff and they sort of just look around and look you dead in the eyes, and that's the engagement. They're in. And I just work, what is it? It's feel for the frequency, stretch it, and just, what is it? Find it, feel it, and stretch it. And, they're Eric's words. And I'd be working with the birds and they're doing this and the eye engagement. Animals only last for about 20 minutes because there's no ego to get through. There's no belief system to get through. They're just being present. They're going, oh, the energy feels different. And they're like catatonic in it. And all of a sudden, they just shake it off. They stretch out their wings and their legs and they look at you again. And then they walk off. But this particular bird one day, one of the waterfowls, he went behind the wall and he came back and he looked at me. It's like, what the hell did you do? I'd work with lizards. Anything that came into my field, I worked with it. But I have to say, the most precious thing I've ever worked with is horses. I had a dear friend named Charlene. She's a bona fide animal communicator. I am not an animal communicator. I did have an experience of learning some of that the other day, but I feel energy. I'm very sensitive. And I was in the paddock one day with her. I'd worked a lot on her horses, and I just noticed this horse in a funk in the paddock. And I'm, whoa, what's going on with him? And she's,
Is that the one in the picture?
That was my friend's. That's one of her horses. This horse I'm talking about was a white show jumping horse. And it had a pony as a friend. But because it was about to go into show jumping, it was being quarantined. They've got to have special food. No one's allowed to feed them so that the ride is not rigged, I suppose. And he was in a funk that he wasn't allowed to eat what he wanted and he was missing his friend. And I know there's something more. What's wrong with the horse? Can you connect in with it? And he said, so the communication that the horse gave her was, the rider, she was young, maybe 14, she's always thinking about the ride. I'm so tired. I just need her to shut her brain down, because while she's thinking about it, I'm reliving it and I'm going through the track with her and I'm tired. And that was a really powerful lesson right there. For any riders out there, have certain times in the day where you're thinking about your program and then switch off, because you are connected to your horse. Your horse is actually connected to you.
You.
And I learned that horses live in the 9th dimension. So even if they're part of, I don't know what you call a group of horses, I'm sorry, a herd of horses, even if one has passed away, they're all still connected as though they're all there. If the horses are separated in paddocks, they connect up here and they see an overall picture, and that's why they can help humans so much. And I learnt that from the animal communicator, because that's what they were telling her. But this particular horse, it said that it needed a break and that she was riding him too hard and she wasn't listening to him. She needed to learn to listen to him because he knows the track. She just has to hang on and he will do it. Right? Exactly. We overthink and complicate things, right? As humans.
We do.
Yeah.
That's hilarious when you think about it. That poor horse is like, oh my God, just let me run.
Yeah, that's it. So the other part of it was he was also scared, because I could feel this feeling of fear in my belly. And can you ask him what's going on inside? There's a feeling of fear. What's happening? And this is that dialogue that I create. And so she asked the horse and he said, I'm scared that I'm going to kill her. And well, why are you scared you're going to kill her? Well, if she falls off, she'll die. Well, why do you think that? Because my other rider died. When was that? Well, in another time, my rider, who I love so much, we were in the war together. And in the war, he fell off and he died. And we felt the grief, both of us felt this overwhelming grief from this horse. He was so sad. He loved that human so much. But this horse was telling us about a previous life. That's the thing. And so we honoured the death of that rider. We honoured the grief. And I said to the horse, I said through the communicator, well, I want you to know that every time you see that young rider put on her helmet, that means that she's taking her life in her own hands and she's becoming responsible for it. And he's like, is that all? Is that all I have to do? Are you kidding me? And apparently he was laughing. And he did a bit of a jolt around the paddock. And so I asked the horse to, another part of it was he felt trapped from when he was a young horse, free and wild. He used to run and jump, and now it's all just a chore, and he didn't want to do the jumping. There was no fun in it. And I said, okay, when you step into the arena with your young rider and she's got her helmet on, I really want you to see yourself as your young self, running and jumping and the glee and the fun, and you are with your herd and they are egging you on. How fast can you go? And he's, oh, this is great. I need my pole reset. And I said to the communicator, what the hell's a pole? And apparently horses have a blueprint, and a person who works energetically and muscle testing on a horse knows where the pole is, and they can reset it and all of those troubles go away. Wouldn't it be nice to have a reset button? And 2 days later, or 2 weeks later, I'm not quite sure, it's or two, that horse and that rider, their communication style was different. She relaxed. I wasn't allowed to work on the young girl. I did ask permission, but there was no. Just work on the horse, and the horse would work on her. So they went and won their category in the state of Victoria.
Wow.
And that's the thank you for the healing, because while we were talking, I was doing healing work, and that's why all these emotions were coming up. So when I'm working with people and when I'm working with animals, I suppose that's just who I am. That's my innate part. There, people stuff comes up. In an office environment, that's not so good because I trigger people. But in a relaxed environment, people love it.
Yeah.
So there's two parties. You either like me or you don't, and I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. It's other people's stuff. What other animals have you worked with?
Wild birds. I had a lorikeet.
Yep.
Lorikeets are green. I think it's on my Facebook page somewhere. There's a green bird with a red beak. It's the birds were going crazy in the backyard, and the cat was at the window, and I'm, oh, what's going on? And there was a bird and there was two cats approaching it. So I've run down the side of the house and I've picked up this bird and I put it in a cat cage, and I instantly started doing energy work on it. And I rang up the RSPCA, and I had to take it into them the next day. So with energy work, we're supposed to leave 12 hours in between, but every time I walked past him, I just worked on it. And I kept in contact with them, and I'm, how's the bird going? And they're saying, look, he's got a broken wing. That will heal. We're going to send it off to a sanctuary. But we are concerned it probably won't make it. Most of these birds don't. You know, they're in shock. But this one seems really calm. I've never seen a bird this calm before, not these ones. And the blood test showed that it had a blood disease, which is what they deduced. That's probably why the bird fell out of the nest. It wasn't a baby bird, but it was getting ready to start to fly.
Yep.
And she said, so it was meant to die, but for some reason it's recovered. I've never seen anything like it before. So working with Reneelston, so with Reconnective Healing for people, that was Eric. And there was a lady that travelled with him for 14 years, Reneelston. She's from Cave Creek in Arizona, Black Creek in Arizona, one of those. And she travelled the world with him for 14 years. And she no longer works with the Reconnection. She goes off and does her own thing. And during that time, as her own business, I flew to Queensland and I learned animal reconnective healing. So it's learning the nuances of animals, how to safely work around a horse and not get kicked and killed. And while I was there learning that, we had a horse and a pony. And I'm getting this communication from the pony. I'm seeing pictures in my head that it had a sore tummy. And I said to Renee, I said, there's something with the horse. It's telling me. She goes, no, you're not an animal communicator. You're here doing energy work. And I'm, yeah, but I'm getting this thing. And she goes, no, you don't mix the two. And I'm, and my gift was being silenced. And I understand if I'm learning something, I have to learn it fully. But see, I've got all these things and now I'm allowed, I give myself permission to mix all this together. And now there is this amazing thing. This pony was telling me it had a sore tummy because the medicated food that the horse was getting, the pony, being a trickster, was getting under the rails and eating its food before the owner could see what was happening. This is what was happening. And no one else heard the message, and I thought I was going crazy. But I get images from animals. So the cat, I adopted a cat a few months ago. Yep. It's been many years since I had a cat, and my heart was a bit broken from my last animal. And So I got a cat, and she's learning that silence is golden. And she's meow, 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 meow. And it took, on day 4, she stopped meowing incessantly because I couldn't cope with it. And now she comes into the bathroom after my shower, and she sits next to me with her back against me and sends me a picture that she wants her harness on to go outside and chew on the grass. And I'm, okay, I understood that you want your harness on, but I'm getting ready for work. I'll make time to do that. And then off she walks, and then she comes back when I'm finished. So this stuff works. This stuff works.
Well,
now, do we have time for you to experience this? Do you want to experience anything?
Absolutely. Not a problem.
So you can't see me, but I'm just doing this. I feel for it and I find it. And you can verbally say anything that you're feeling. So I feel a sensation now. So that lets me know that I'm connected with you. And with this work, you don't have to call in your angels, and we don't have to do 21 turns of this and all these protocols. That's what's so amazing about it. We've expanded beyond the need for all of that.
Yep.
So for those of you who want to take off your training wheels and let go of all of that baggage, this is really cool. So while I'm talking, I'm just working with you, and the sensations that I feel in my hand because it's different for everyone. I feel like effervescent tingles in the palms of my hand and my left thumb. What I'm noticing when I do this work, when it can take 20 minutes sometimes half an hour, I start getting images where I see the person going up through a friend of mine, she talked about it. We went to the 7th dimension and the 500th dimension. I don't know. But I see 3 galactics in there that plug in computer cords and work on a program. And I see myself up there as well. And this is all new. This stuff's new. So it's like as if it was a 4-cylinder and now it's a V12. So if you want, you can share with people, are you feeling any sensations? It could be no.
Yeah.
It could be yes.
I felt you coming around here. I felt the energy coming around here. Yeah. And now I'm getting buzzing in my feet.
Yeah.
Like I'm grounding and the energy's coming through and grounding. Up to my knees. I can feel my legs buzzing.
Is it an erratic feeling or is it a peaceful, calm feeling?
It's a peaceful, yeah. It's not like pins and needles. It's just an energy buzz.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about this is that, again, it's not just energy. Energy is the thing that moves the light that the information travels through. Okay?
Yeah, I got the same feeling in my arms, up to my elbows.
Yeah. I'm getting an image of it coming up to your heart. You see, I get lost in this stuff too. I get really relaxed. And so the best way I describe it is, and I've got a little video on one of my Facebook pages, is that this work is like having a swimming pool in front of us, and I've already jumped in the water, okay, and I'm feeling the water all around me. And I say, hey, Brooke, come and hop in the water. And you jump in and you have your experience. We're both wet. We're both in the water having an experience. And we get out and I go, wow, that was awesome. It was really cold and effervescent and revitalizing. You go, what? No, it wasn't. It was warm and the water was really smooth against my skin. And I'm like, no, it was really cold. So we're both in the same pond, but we're having a different experience. Energy is all around us. It's not something that I'm sending to you. I'm just bringing my awareness of the energy in between my hands, the quirks, the quarks, the protons, the neutrons, science behind it. And with that, I bring you into that, as in my attention, my intention is to put my attention on you. That's it. That's all I have to do as the human element in this energy, light, and information work. And then if you were to, say, work with me, spend an hour with me, the energy work only goes for 20 minutes to half an hour, no more. It doesn't need to. But a conversation starts after that. And that's where stuff just starts to bubble up. Okay, so I'm getting a sensation, and I want to, can I ask you a question? Do I have permission?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything happening inside of your stomach?
No, I feel a little bit bloated.
Feel a little bit bloated?
I typically eat vegetarian, and at work they were having steak sandwiches, and I bought myself a steak sandwich today, and it bloated me.
Oh, so is there a sensation there now of that bloatedness?
No, a little bit.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is that I'm
the sun to the top of it. To the top.
What I'm getting at is I'm feeling your stomach. And I wouldn't say to someone, oh, I can feel a pain in my stomach, it must be this. I have an awareness of it, and then I ask you, is anything going on in your stomach? And because most people, when they're in a meditation, they float off and out. Everything I do is about being in your body and being aware of it. So the questions I ask are to bring your attention in and to explore your own body. And then as this work continues to unravel and evolve through the hour, the days, the weeks afterwards, you start to notice sensations in your body and you become aware of it. Sometimes when people work with this work, at night time, they might have their lamp beside their bed, and then all of a sudden, the globe gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and there is no reason why it would do that. It doesn't blow. It just gets really, really bright. And that's when we know the energy work's taken on a whole other level. And sometimes when this work's going on, I say to people, I'm not going to touch you at all. But you may feel touch. It's not me. And it's that programming stuff that's taking place. We physically feel it in our body. So are you still feeling sensations anywhere in your body?
Yeah, all over the body.
Can you give people an idea of what you're feeling?
Okay. Well, my hands are touching the table through my heart chakras are buzzing, and the feet are on the ground. They're buzzing up my legs, up my arms, and I can feel this. I can feel around my stomach, and just a light coming up here. The whole body's buzzing at the moment.
Awesome. And the person who's helping you in the background was Cindy, yes?
Yes.
Do you see Cindy?
No.
Oh, so it's
unless she puts her camera on.
Virtual assistant.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I don't know who Cindy is. I've never seen Cindy, but my attention has gone to Cindy. So it would be interesting after this if Cindy sends a chat to you. I'm not sure if she's listening to this or she's checked out, but whether Cindy would be feeling some sensations going through her body. So as I'm working with Cindy, the sensation in my hands completely changes. So with you, Brooke, it felt effervescent and bubbly, but with Cindy, it's just this solid coming out. If I didn't have hands, this would still work. We can use our eyes. You know, it's really good to experiment with babies. They're great. When you're in a cafe, if we're ever allowed to get to a cafe, and a baby's crying, you can Cindy, yeah, awesome. You can feel, you can see this child, they'll have their back to you and all of a sudden they'll look you dead in the eyes. They know where their energy, what's happening. Something's happening and they're aware of it. And we don't always have to know what's happening, but just the awareness that something is happening.
Yep.
So is there anyone that's watching this that has any questions? Do you have any questions?
Is that somato emotional release? Asked Tracy.
Somatic.
Somatic.
I don't teach reconnective healing. Reconnective healing, it used to be taught in person only with only Eric Pearl. But he's sort of stepped aside a little bit now. However, on the Reconnection website, they have level 1. This goes to level 2. So level 1, everyone learns it. You can be a plumber, an electrician, a vet, a nurse. You don't have to be a healer to learn this stuff. Anyone can learn it. And by watching the 8, so he's broken it into 8 little sections, and you watch it online and the energy of it comes through the screen. It's really incredible. Like, yep. I'm talking with Brooke, I'm talking with Cindy, and the energy goes through the screen because there is no barrier. This is outside time and space. But what I love about this is how it magnifies whatever it is that you are and that your higher self wants you to be. That's the most beautiful part about it. So I was told many, many years ago that I would be a healer. I would be doing things with my hands. And what, are you kidding me? I was working in factories and farms, steel caps and high heels. So, yeah, it's just... It just changes everything and it magnifies. So, you know, if you've been working on something and you're stuck, this magnifies it. And the way for me, yes, reconnective healing helped me to remember. It brought me to a space of remembering. And from that, all this other stuff has just innately started to merge. And it's really making a big difference to people's lives. I love working with the many. I love working one-on-one and one-to-few for those people who actually work with the many, because they affect many, many other people's lives. And see, the ripple effect is just huge.
Absolutely.
Mm.
You help someone. You help 2 people, they'll help 2 people.
Well, that's it. And, you know, overcoming fear. Fear has been a big thing for me. And I'm able to navigate that, or the people that I need just naturally come into my life. And that's what all of this work sort of does. It's beautiful. I love it. I want to do more of it. Who wants to work with me? Are you ready to work with me?
Oh, that's right, because all the links are in the show notes, people. Is there any more questions for Nicole? Does anyone have any more questions?
I'm not allowed to teach people about reconnective healing because that's Eric's gig. He's the only man in the world who does that. However, stuff that I'm doing now and helping people to feel at peace and navigate their bodies and working with their animals, I absolutely can do that sort of stuff. The weather's starting to warm up, so I'm down Rosebud Way in Victoria. So beach meditations are going to start up where I do this energy work and we connect in with the sounds of the ocean, the distractions of the birds, the feeling the sand, being very, very present, because there are so many people at the moment in so much stress, and I know this firsthand with what's going on. However, there is a way to feel peace, and it happens very, very fast, and it can stay with you. And once this work takes on, it's like as if you're saying, okay, I'm open to experiencing something new. And that's why, where am I? Hang on, everything works opposite with the camera. That's why I have this picture with a door. Hang on, which way am I going? I feel like the weather woman. There's a door here because all I'm doing, I'm being the human element here that can open the door. And you choose to step in and have an experience just like Brooke did, and just like I threw Cindy through the door. Sorry, Cindy, I didn't ask. But it's gentle, it's kind, it's compassionate, and it's very, very safe. There are no contrary indications with this, none. It doesn't affect any medication anyone's on. And when you invite this higher frequency and higher vibration into your body, whatever is not a match to that, anything that is below that, physically can't stay in your body anymore. And that is how healings sometimes spontaneously happen. We can think we want a certain thing to happen, fix my elbow. But if we let go of that and just go, I'm open to experiencing, the elbow might be sore because we have a thought pattern that needs changing. So it might be the thought pattern that heals. And all of a sudden, a week later, the elbow doesn't hurt. Does that make sense?
The energy. Yeah. Because the energy will regulate itself. I find that sometimes too. I do like a healing work on myself, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't instantly heal. And you're like, I would have, And then you wake up the next morning and you forget that, wait a sec, it's not there anymore.
That's it.
Because I guess you've got to wait for the time for the inflammation and all that to, when it aligns.
When I was, I don't know how old I was. I might have been 12. I fell off a horse. It was windy. The horse reared up. I kicked a leg off to get off the horse to dismount while it was in its rearing phase. And I tumbled under the horse and was trodden on that close to my spine. And that affected my pregnancy, just a weakness. And when I went to learn Reconnective Healing, I didn't go, because I was living with that for so long, I didn't think anything of it. But on the third day, after being in that huge container with hundreds of other people, I jumped out of bed in a way that I'd never jumped out of bed. And I realized, oh my God, my back is not sore anymore. Wow. And that's why I went on to do number 2, Reconnective Healing, because I wanted to have this as a business. So that's what I was saying before. Number 1 teaches everyone about it and everyone can do it. But number 2, you're still doing the healing, but you're learning the business side of it. So, my back healed from that horse incident. There's been other things that have happened, recently with work and things like that, where there's been a re-injury. I wouldn't say a re-injury because that injury healed, but this is a new one. So I'm working on that with other people as well.
We have another question. Have you been feeling tired lately? I guess there's a few people that have recently.
I live in Victoria, Staffy. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I'm normally in bed at this time of night because it's 7:15. I mean, see, I'm dyslexic at the moment. It is 17 minutes past 11 in Victoria, and I'm normally sound asleep by this time. Do I look a little bit tired, Staffy?
I think I've heard a lot of people just say that today they've been extra tired, just worn out.
I did have the pleasure of sitting at the beachside today and just sitting on the sand. No one was around, and it really helped me feel a lot better just connecting in with earth and the waves and the seagulls. It was really lovely. Yeah.
It's been great having you on. I think
Thank you.
We'll have to continue.
I think we've gone over our hour. I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's all right. It's just like a guideline an hour.
Yeah.
Because I used to do another chat show, and that used to go for 2-3 hours, and like 2 hours into it, I'm like, oh, I want to go.
Yeah. Well, I hope
it's just because I get tired after.
Engaged and interested in this line of work.
Yeah, I've learned so much. Just before we say goodbye, people, next week we've got an Adelaide visionary artist, transpersonal artist, therapist, author, psycho-spiritual guide, professional cleaner, sorry, cleaner. Sorry, Angela.
Start that again.
We have a visionary artist, transpersonal art therapist and author, and psycho-spiritual guide and professional clearer.
Wow, that sounds great. Angela Kirby.
Yep.
Look out for her next week.
Yeah, I'll just play the promo. And that should be a good show.
It's going to be great.
I love doing this show. It's just great because just the amount that you learn from having people on, and it forces me to connect with people that I don't know and just like hunt out people like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you know? It's just brilliant. I'm loving it.
It'll be interesting for someone to interview you one night and ask you how all of this interviewing has affected you and guided you through your awakening, but that's for another conversation another time.
It is indeed. Okay, thanks very much for coming on tonight. Thank you, everyone. All the links are in the show notes, so if you exit out, if you're in Facebook, you'll see a whole list of the channels and links, so you can get hold of Nicole.
You can reach me through Facebook, Nicole Rhodes Energy Healthcare.
Yep.
Add me as a friend. You're all welcome.
Yep. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all that. It all helps get this show out there. Okay.
See you later.
Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye.